first thing I want to talk about is our f-stop or aperture. Okay, now what you're going to notice in this shot is that the background has a nice blur to it. So the plants at the back there, they're out of focus, and it's also referred to as bokeh, the amount of blur that we're seeing. Um, and it's a very pleasing, artistic. It's a great thing. Everyone loves a nice blurry backdrop, but it also focuses direction to the thing that's sharp in the scene. Okay, so we can see that this face is nice and sharp, and then we've got that nice blurred background. Um, that's because we've got our f-stop nice and low at 2.8. So that at 2.8, we're getting that blur. It's also allowing more light in, so it brightens up our scene. If I wanted to bring this number higher and not have so much background blur, you're going to start to notice that, yeah, we're getting that sharper, but not as much light is coming in. Okay. So it's getting darker. So the higher we go, we're at f8, we have a sharper background, but the scene is dark. So then what you have to do is you have to compensate with either ISO or shutter. So we have some decisions to make, okay? Now, if we look over at my shutter speed on the left here, okay, it's at 50, 1/50. Now, for photography, that's getting kind of low. You're getting into territory of motion blur, especially if you're doing handheld shots. I wouldn't necessarily be down at 50. That's kind of pushing it. You might get some motion blur. I would be more above 60. I would be more like this. But of course, that's really dark, right? And you can see on our meter there, -2. So we're really dark. So we're going to need to bring the ISO up, okay? So we have a sharper background now. It's still a little bit of blur, but not as blurry as before. But we now had to bring our ISO way up, which, depending on your camera, that could introduce more noise. Some cameras are better in low light than others. Of course, if you're outside and you've got sunlight, it's going to be less of an issue. I mean, those settings are going to be completely different, and we'll get there. But okay, so we've brightened it up with the ISO. Now, if we feel like that's too bright, we can bring the ISO back down. You do want to watch your meter here, -0.3, so we're close to 0, but we do have to use our eyes too, and make sure it looks good to our eyes. I do like to make sure the skin looks nice. I don't want the skin to be overblown and washed out. So I'm going to watch for that as well. Now, if we go a little higher on the f-stop, let's see here. Let's go, if we really crank it up to about, let's see, 11, you can see how much more in focus things are. You'd really have to push your settings here. ISO, we'd have to bring this guy way up. I mean, on my Sony, this is a low light camera, so I can push these ISO levels. Not every camera will be able to. But you can see the difference. So what is that? F13. And then if we go all the way back down to f2.8, whoa, that's way blown out. But now we're gonna have to compensate. So let's bring the ISO way back down to about 640. Not bad, not bad, not bad. And then you can see how much blur we have in the background, okay? So the f-stop is pretty important. And it's a creative thing. I mean, you're going to choose to, like, stylistically, how much blur do you want? I love 2.8. I definitely, if I'm shooting interviews, portraits, headshots. Well, headshots can be, there's a couple different ways to think about how much blur I want. But, to my eyes, this looks fantastic. So that's a 2.8. That's the lowest this particular lens will go. I have a 50mm that's a 1.4, which that bokeh is beautiful. If you ever get the chance to shoot on 1.4 lenses, those are awesome. Or a 1.2 even is crazy. But yeah, so 2.8, you get that nice background blur.